The next pivotal movement in technology began in 1870. 1870 marked the second industrial revolution. As MISA 2004 states, built from science-based technologies, altered merely how goods were produced and consumed, but also how industrial society evolved. There were several new industries born in this time period, which what was done only in the laboratory were now transfigured into consumer products. MISA 2004 added, through product innovation and energetic marketing schemes, science-based industries help create a mass consumer society. It was the dawn for corporate industry and how it collaborated with research universities and government agencies. It truly was the age of science and systems. Technologists focused on improving, stabilizing, and entrenching existing systems rather than entirely new ones. This was done by patent laws, corporate ownership, industrial research laboratories, and engineering education. MISA 2004 stated that today's technology took on its meaning as a set of devices during this era. It all started with a simple substance called coke. Coke is a byproduct of burning coal. Another term for the product is called coal tar. There was a lot of coke during this era. What to do with all of it? Let's watch a YouTube video that discusses a very important invention using coke.
Cinchona plantations were established all over the tropics. But every year, the empires of Europe needed hundreds of tons of the bark to combat malaria. So governments looked to chemists to come up with a synthetic alternative. Now, in 1820, a couple of French chemists managed to isolate the active ingredient in the bark, and they called it quinine. What people were desperately wanted to do next was obviously produce an artificial version of quinine. The problem was, nobody had done anything as complex as that before. The attempts to do so would open the world to chemistry on an industrial scale. The challenge to make artificial quinine was taken up in a makeshift lab in London's East End, in an attic room, by young William Perkin.
Boiled beef and carrots.
And I like to think he found his inspiration round the corner, in his local music hall.
Well done, live like vegetarians on toast they give the parrot. Blow at your kind from all your night on boiled beef and carrots.
Isn't it magnificent? Now, the theatre, and in fact all of London, would have been lit by gas lights, and the gas was produced from coal. Now, one of the rather nasty side products of that process was a black viscous substance called coal tar. Now, a certain Charles Mackintosh used this stuff and produced waterproof Macs, but Perkin was about to make a discovery which was far, far more lucrative than that. The chemicals he used to try and create quinine are highly toxic. So I'm going to use substitutes to show what the process looked like. Now, from coal tar, other chemists had produced a substance called aniline, which contains similar amounts of carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen as quinine. So this seemed like a pretty good place to start. He mixed up his aniline with sulfuric acid and also a substance called potassium dichromate, which is a sort of chemical mixer. And then he left it all to sort of brew for a while. What he found was black, gunky, really quite revolting. I'm surprised he didn't chuck it away, but he didn't. In his laboratory at the top of his parents' house, he distilled, he mixed. He eventually produced a very interesting little powder. He had not discovered artificial quinine. He had instead discovered something which had never been seen before, and which he really wasn't expecting. He had discovered the colour. The He had created the first great synthetic dye and made the world a far more colourful place. Perkin never did make quinine, but he did create a fashion sensation. The rich and famous loved his synthetic mauve. This is really beautiful. It's an antique Victorian dress. Now, Perkin's mauve was more than simply a fashion statement. The aniline dyes which were used to colour this dress were the first to be produced on a truly industrial scale. So, strange as it may sound, this dress marks a significant moment in human history, when the synthetic took over from the natural on a truly massive scale. By the 1870s, Perkins' factory was making hundreds of tons of dye a year, adding Perkins Green and Britannia Violet to his growing catalogue of vivid colours. Perkin is rightly celebrated as the father of industrial chemistry. But the lead soon passed to Germany, where industrial chemists worked out how to make ammonia, which led to artificial fertilizers, which today sustain the global population.
Another important pioneer in technology in Germany was August Kuckel. His work spawned the other chemists to synthesize naturally occurring dyes, including indigo, and more importantly came the creation of an entirely new field in chemistry, that being organic chemistry. Another important development in Germany was, as Misa 2004 wrote, found that patent laws in Germany, by erecting a legal shield around the azo dye field and preserving the scientific mass labor, reinforced the system's stabilizing mode of innovation. It was shown that it was in the best interest of society to have public disclosure and patent term protection with new technological advances. Germany outpaced other countries for patents significantly. Like Leonardo da Vinci, chemistry in this era was used for military purposes. Unfortunately, this was the beginning of chemical warfare. Chlorine was used in battle that caused over 500,000 casualties.